AMN DriveTime is sponsored by Aishin, your trusted and reliable source for aftermarket automotive components and technology. Visit AishinAftermarket.com for more information.
Paul and Bill, welcome to AMN DriveTime, sponsored by our good friends at Aishin.
Hey,
glad to have
great
you,
to be
Paul.
here, Bill.
Glad to be back.
Glad to have you, Bill. This is a AMN DriveTime on the road. We are at the MEMA Vision Conference in Chicago as we visit, so thank you for getting together.
Welcome.
We know you have a lot going on over the next 48 hours, so we appreciate it. So question number one to you guys, I'll toss it out there, and whoever wants to answer it, please do. What are you hearing as far as a sentiment among suppliers in the aftermarket in general about the state of the aftermarket as we start Vision Conference this evening?
Yeah, it's a great question, Bill, because Vision, of course, seeks to be the premier executive event for the automotive aftermarket. And it just feels like at this moment, there's never been a more important time for suppliers in the aftermarket to get together. There are just so many pain points we're dealing with. So tariffs, obviously, a point of discussion here, but the market, the sourcing footprint, profitability, the Repair Act, impact of consolidation, talent to technology. There are so many things that make it hard to be a supplier right now. So Vision has always had this focus of trying to have both vision into what matters for success now and vision into what do we need to see on that road ahead to be successful. And there's so many things on both of them. So again, a lot of trepidation, a lot of assumptions that we had coming into the year that are being shaken. But at the same time, there's also so much inner strength and so much optimism because the aftermarket is always resilient. Last year wasn't a wonderful year from sales perspective, but if you look at our midterm drivers, things like age of vehicles, miles driven, VIO, they are incredibly positive in the near term, and certainly even as we look into the midterm. There's also new opportunities. I'm going to talk about some of them at Vision. So ADAS, great technology opportunity. We're going to share our latest ADAS study, and I'll tell you the trend line there is looking very exciting. We have our latest landmark study that we've done with McKinsey, and it's talking about how technology, we've talked about technology for forever, but we seem to be at this tipping point where more of this stuff is becoming real, where technology really can bring some opportunities to increase efficiencies and margin, and we certainly need that in this environment. So again, it feels like there's never been a better time with either near-term disruption or that long-term strategy to kind of get together, get our heads around what that vision needs to be. Bill?
Well said, Paul. And I would just add supplier sentiment.
Yeah.
We do a member survey every year, at the end of the year, which asks that question. How do members feel about the last 3 months, the next 3 months, and the next 6 months? And we've watched that trend line kind of over time come down. So sentiment has been concerning. Suppliers, I think, are nervous about maybe the slowness in the industry. And I think the thing we hear most right now, Bill, is really about that, about the concern. The business just seems soft right now. Obviously, tariffs are a major concern, creating a lot of anxiety, but really people are starting to see the impact of that maybe in consumer buying habits. So I would say the end of the fourth quarter last year, sentiment was down. I think if we were to take that today, it would be down even further.
Here we are in the middle of April 2025, or the start of April 2025. It feels unsettled.
Unsettled.
Yeah. It's
That's
an
a good
unsettling time right now,
Yeah.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think maybe just to build on that, certainly the lack of clarity around tariffs, and I know that'll be a discussion tomorrow, April 2nd, when that arrives, and probably for the rest of the 4-year term of the current administration.
I just love your word unsettled, because I think that is it. As business people, we need some level of certainty to be able to invest. And it does come off of that relatively weaker marketplace. Because if you look at the government data, the cost to repair vehicles from 2019 to today has gone up 40%. Now, one of our great strengths in the aftermarket has always been I need my vehicle repaired now.
Yep.
We have that price inelasticity. But there is this concern of, like many industries, of could we get a little bit ahead of the consumer on this? And we know consumers are hurting somewhat now. And now will tariffs add on to that? So the uncertainty is, first, what are the rules of the road? And we're business people. You tell us how to win this, nobody like us, we will win that game. But we need to know what the rules of the game are. And so that's uncertainty. Then the other uncertainty is, what does this mean for the aftermarket consumer? They have been the strongest, most resilient consumers of any sector. People need us. But, how much can that continue in the face of some of this?
Somehow, some way, the aftermarket always adjusts.
We do.
Right? So one of MEMA's priorities is to keep members informed about legislative issues and the impact to their business. And you guys have been communicating a lot very recently. With the recent tariffs obviously topping the list, you mentioned it. What has been the feedback from your members to your correspondence and guidance on this issue? So you're putting a lot out there. What are they saying as you're delivering the information, as you're learning it very quickly in Washington?
Yeah, no, also a great question, Bill. Our focus has always been to create a platform to bring clarity around the issues. And certainly there is a huge lack of clarity right now. All the noise, if you will, or innuendos, the start and stop of some of the announcements that we've seen from the administration. So our approach is really to provide the facts and the exact data once it's known, and to do that very quickly. And we do that through a trade working group that we have. You mentioned we have a lot of platforms. We have a USMCA working group, a government affairs council that works on strategies to achieve the end in mind, as well as updating CEO councils and the MEMA board and so forth. And I think the general feedback, Paul, correct me if I'm wrong, but what we're hearing from members is how much they appreciate the facts. We won't put a communication out until we have clarity around the executive orders, vetted through our legal counsel, and also include all the HTS product codes that are going to be affected, which is really what people want to know. So I think that's the overwhelming feedback that we get is, one, greater speed, appreciate all the different platforms. We might actually have over communication in many cases, but the fact that they can rely on the information and quote the facts that we're providing. So I think that's been the general feedback.
Yeah, and I think Bill said it so well. There is this hunger we've heard from our members for that accurate information because there's so much that's shifting fast, but also there's a lot of misinformation out there, even after the rules have come out, because it really isn't the details that matters when you're figuring out your business and what the implications are. And so the feedback from members is the appreciation for us as a trusted advisor. Bill talked about our trade working group. We have hundreds of our members engaged in this group includes our members' trade experts, the folks who want to shape policy. And there was a comment at the end of one of the meetings where there's all kinds of information and questions. And the member said, "Thank you, MEMA. I don't know what we do without you." And it's not about us, it's about what it is, the impact for our members. But I will say our folks have been working nights and weekends to try to figure this out and try to get that information to folks. It really gave them a new set of energy.
I'll just build on an example. So in the executive order about the tariffs that were implemented, the relief for USMCA compliant members, the sound bites in the media were that those end April 2nd. And the executive order actually does not have a termination date for tariffs that will be, alleviated with that are USMCA compliant. So on April 2nd, a new executive order would actually have to be enforced or implemented that would set the closing date for those that participate. That might happen tomorrow. I think the common thinking or belief is that USMCA compliant tariffs would end tomorrow, which would actually require a new order and a law from the administration to terminate those.
You guys have done a nice job of being very prompt as things have unfolded in the last 30, 60, 90 days. It's impressive. You guys are right on it with Washington info.
Yeah, appreciate that.
Thank you. And the other thing I'd like to say that helps us is just the guidance from our members. So in our trade working group, our government affairs committee, the surveys that we send out to folks, members, everything we do is member driven. And our members have been so helpful to give us the information to help guide that. The surveys are so important as we try to communicate facts to the administration and be a trusted advisor, not just to our members, but to our government. And then going forward, our big goal is not just information, as important that is, but also to be the voice of suppliers, which we've long been, and the voice of the aftermarket, or a voice of the aftermarket. And to be frank, there hasn't been a lot of opportunity for that voice recently, but going forward, this is the start, not the end. The negotiations are coming, and they're going to come fast and furious, and we need to have that voice. And vehicle suppliers, in aggregate, we are the biggest manufacturing sector in the U.S. We talk about bringing jobs back to the U.S., strengthening U.S. manufacturing. They're talking about us. They're talking about the impacts of this. They're talking about us. So we certainly need to have that voice. And again, thanks to our members for telling us and helping us and allowing us to be that voice.
And we've got a little bit of a roadmap because we went through this during COVID.
Right.
Yes.
The entire industry shut down for a period. We were deemed resilient, so in many ways we could continue to operate. But as you remember, OEMs shut down production lines.
Yeah.
The entire industry had to learn how to restart. And the roadmap we use, MEMA, and communicating with our members to help facilitate the restart of an industry and help the industry move forward. So we've dusted off. Well, actually, we've in the past 5 years, we've never gotten away from that approach.
You don't have to dust it off. It's always ready to go.
Yeah. It's not been a dull 5 years in the
not.
aftermarket, has it?
It's not.
But it's always good, as you said earlier. It's amazing how resilient we are.
Always figure it out.
Yes, we do.
So let's talk about a topic that we've been talking about a long time, and I feel like anytime we're in your company, I think we need to talk about is the Repair Act legislation and initiatives to support it, and what's the current state of affairs in your guys' opinion
Yeah.
for the AMN audience.
Yeah.
Okay.
Paul?
Well, thanks, Bill. Hopefully, your listeners know everything I'm going to say, and we're just preaching to the choir here. But again, the Repair Act, which is introduced by Representative Dunn, it is the solution to address the repair restrictions that we face and that will explode over time as newer technology vehicles come in. It's essentially restraint of trade. And I do want to stress that the bill is not political. This is very bipartisan. This really is just about fundamental principles. So it's based around consumer choice, competition, and property rights. Representative Dunn actually always likes to talk the property rights angle because he's like, listen, if I have to keep paying you through the life of the vehicle to repair and maintain it, just keep it on the road, then I don't really own that vehicle. I'm just renting it from you. So anyway, so it's based on these fundamental American principles. And in the end, all we're asking for is what we've had for 121 years. Market competition, the ability to repair our vehicles affordably. So make no mistake, this is absolutely the fight of our generation. This is a fight for the future of our industry. And with industry actions and our coalition, we've made good progress already in 2025. So HR 1566, the Repair Act, was introduced right at the start of this Congress. And we've been doing everything possible to advance it.
Yeah.
I mean, MEMA's invested more in this issue than on any in our 21-year history. We are eating the seed corn, as I like to say. We're investing the retained earnings that suppliers have put together for decades to advance this issue. The board asked me to move to Washington, D.C. to help fight for this. And I see it every day. Our lobbyists are on the Hill, visit after visit with Congress people trying to push this. We've added outside lobbyists. We work closely with our great trade association partners. So obviously those are folks like us at MEMA, Aftermarket, but also AutoCare, AWDA, CARE. But it's wider than that. We have folks from independent dealers to oil change groups, Repair is now one of the top 10 priorities of one of the most influential small business groups. We've organized legislative fly-in for our members already this year to educate Congress on the new bill. And the one thing I would tell folks, so this is all the stuff. We're in good shape, we're pushing, we have the right bill with the right principles. We need those co-sponsors. Everybody in Congress needs to know how important it is. So the most important thing is what our members have been doing. They need to keep doing it. Have those representatives at their facilities. When you get them there, invite all your friends in the aftermarket from nearby, show them the voters, show them how important we are, and get them to sign on as co-sponsors.
Bill, any further comments there? It's pretty well articulated.
Yeah, sorry, I've been saying this spiel for so long.
Right, well, it's well articulated. Well done.
You may recall when I was wearing a supplier hat back in the day, I was there when OBD2 and the check engine light and part of the Clean Air Act amendment and the industry came together to lobby and advocate. I can't tell you how many times I testified in front of Senate subcommittee hearings to get the launch codes, the troubleshooting codes for OBD2 for the industry. And then we got right to repair, and look how long that took. And now with telematics, the issues are much more complex. And I think where we are now with the Repair Act is a lot farther along in the timeline than even I thought we would be at. Looking at history and even right to repair, which was much simpler at the time than now telematics and over-the-air reporting. But this is absolutely a must-win topic for the industry and a must-win topic for suppliers. And just to build on, the MEMA board has allocated millions to support resources for right to repair. And all the people involved, including the membership, which was so key along the way, has really helped us move this forward. And we're hoping for more good news in the months to come.
And Bill, I got to note, Bill Long was talking about the advocating in the OBD2 days. Mr. Long won our highest award for members back then, because you were a member, our Triangle Award for all that advocacy he did on this issue way back then.
Award. That's a big deal.
Long time ago.
This is unfair. What's the most optimistic timeline to get right to repair passed? Is that even a fair question?
Oh, absolutely. This Congress, the industry needs to fight for this Congress. It is not guaranteed it's going to take
so that's in the next 2
tooth
years.
and nail, the next 2 years, because the timing is great. We are populist in the sense that almost every American has a vehicle. It's how we get to work. They need this, and I think that can resonate. We do have bipartisan support. This is totally different than it was a couple years ago. You've heard this from us before, but we go into Washington and we say, hey, we're talking about right to repair. We're talking about the Repair Act. They say, what is that? What's the issue? That is not what we get now. Everybody knows the issue. They see it as a priority. They understand how strong our opposition is, because monopolistic power is very appealing. But it's a totally different conversation. So we do have momentum. I can certainly not guarantee that.
Sure.
But if we
but
fight
the time
hard,
is now.
the time is now.
There's a sense of urgency right now. It's less than 24 months.
Yeah.
It's now like 20 months,
Yeah.
right?
And now it's just cutting through the clutter of all the other agenda items
Sure.
that the administration has and that the Congress is trying to sort out.
And make no mistake, we fight so hard. But what's going to win it is the grassroots work. It is the shoe leather lobbying. It will be people in their district saying, come to this aftermarket facility, sign on to this bill. That is what can make it pass in these next 2 years.
Guys, the MEMA Aftermarket Suppliers Training Council held its inaugural meeting a month or so ago. Describe the primary goals of the group and how is it going to benefit the industry? How is it going to benefit your members?
So it is a very exciting new group, and I think it speaks to this larger trend about how the technology increases that Bill was just talking about in the vehicles. That has made training, which has always been important for our industry, even more important. And so our goal is to make sure that our members, and our members' goal is to make sure our customers are ready for all these technology shifts that we face going forward. So the training council, like all our councils, it's all about best practices and networking and learning and getting better together. And I'm no expert in this, but there's a lot happening in training. I mean, the first meeting was fascinating. All this talk about some of these cutting edge technology and production and delivery. They're also focused a lot on market insights, trying to really understand how repair professionals are actually getting their training now, how they really want it, so that we can improve what we're offering to the industry and to our customers. The other thing that the Training Council does is it oversees the MEMA Training Hub, which I'm sure you've heard about. So this is really to help professionals drive them to that critical technology training, make sure that they're ready. And it's only a piece of the puzzle, but it is a great goal because, we've heard it. We talk about that market research. There's an amazing number of professional shops who are looking for things on YouTube. We need to make sure that they're getting the right training and the right stuff and conveniently. And the goal here is to improve quality, reduce comebacks, reduce returns, really get those quality repairs on vehicles. And the longer sort of view thing is that, I do my talk from the top here at Vision every year, talk with the heads of the big customers. And for several years, they've been telling us, hey, suppliers, you are not doing enough to prepare our end customers for this new technology. So the end in mind is clear. We need the independent aftermarket to be prepared. Whatever vehicle comes in, we know how to repair it confidently, and they are confident in us. And our industry just needs to do whatever we can to get that outcome.
So about a decade ago, you guys helped create an aftermarket outlook for 2025. And here we are, stunningly. That was a fast decade, right? What did you get right? What are the biggest trends you anticipate as you prepare to look at the next 10 years, above and beyond tariffs? We don't need to talk about tariffs anymore, but other than tariffs.
That was not part of the study.
Yes.
We did not predict that, so we got that wrong.
All right, so this is a tough question. You told me about this one, so I got a few notes.
Good.
But it is tough. How good was our crystal ball a decade ago? And our vision then? So I'll start with a couple things we got right. So first, the study said that consolidation would continue. It certainly has. It was also on the mark about e-tailing. Said that, hey, this is going to play a huge role in driving purchase decisions. It will grow in share, but it was actually controversial at the time because it had pushback. Because you remember where we were 10 years ago. There were a bunch of people saying that by this time, we'd be like books. Everybody was buying every part online. Our study said, no, it's a little bit more complicated in the aftermarket. It seems obvious now. There's still thousands of stores, but that was one of the big findings that was right. We got the continued SKU proliferation right. And then another interesting finding of the study was that it said we're going to continue that global sourcing trend. So that seemed right as of 2024. We'll see if it's right as of 2026. So want to hear a few things we got wrong?
Sure.
All right. So there's a couple things we got wrong that we're actually glad to have gotten wrong. First was there was a prediction that dealers would increase share due to increasing vehicle technology. We've actually seen the opposite. Dealers have actually lost a little bit of share, and that's because of the increasing age of vehicles and the affordability issues that we've seen the last decade. Another one we got wrong is it said that DIY would decline more. And we really haven't seen that, probably partly due to the YouTube phenomenon, the democratization of DIY repair. And then also probably because of COVID, some of those behavior changes we saw. We had the time, we want to get our hands dirty. A final prediction that we had that was wrong was that it said that shops would invest more in advanced technology than what we've seen. And that's an interesting one. We have this new ADOS study we're releasing here at Vision, and it projects that maybe in a couple of years, it hasn't happened yet, but we could get to that turning point, that we'll see more of the shops investing in that advanced technology and being prepared. So that's an interesting one. So let me stop there, see if Bill was the head of the organization when we did this study. See if you have any insights and what you think going forward.
The top of mind for me was the comment that independent service shops would be transformed.
Yeah.
They wouldn't look the way that they are back then, a decade ago. When I visited Babcock's and your shop, that was an affirmation that, in part, and it did clarify, the good shops would make that transition.
Right.
And looking at your shop, it's clear that that was true. Your shop doesn't look anything like a decade ago when you think about the repair and service community. And I think that's pretty true. We knew that, again, the prediction was that OEM dealers would take share and that they would have, that independent service shops would really need to reinvent themselves with the ability to cater to the different needs, Uber rides, coffee, a great shop, better marketing, and let alone the technology and innovation in the bays, and the techs that would be hired over that time. And I think to a large degree, the best shops do embody that. And I think that was a bold wake-up call for the industry, that it said, it's not going to be business as usual. We need to change to keep pace. And the prediction was that those that don't make that transition probably won't survive. I'm not sure about the survivability part. We had COVID, vehicle age increased. I think those shops, the demand helped them along the way because of that. But I think it was a strong prediction that business was not going to be done like it used to be.
This relates a little bit to right to repair too. How many dealer rooftops would you say there are today in 2025? Are there as many as 20,000 rooftops? Is it less than that? 16,000 rooftops?
I wish I knew that figure offhand. I don't, but what I can tell you is the capacity, repair capacity. Dealers still have only around 20% of the overall repair capacity.
And there's only so much work. Say it's 20,000 dealers, just for easy math, rooftops. There's 300 million plus or minus cars and light trucks out there.
Exactly.
That seems like a really good fact for the independent aftermarket.
Yeah, and I think it's the number of service bays. Isn't it around 120,000 service bays, of which 25% might be claimed by dealerships. And we're all seeing the delay as you try to make an appointment, particularly at a dealership.
Right.
We can squeeze you in a week or two.
Big time.
5.5 days on average to get an appointment at a dealer. That doesn't work.
No, it doesn't.
Sorry, Bill.
No, that well said.
There's a great little shop near us in Akron that Wilson's Garage. You got 4 bays. You call them on Monday, you can get in there Tuesday, Wednesday, and they get you in, they get you out. And it's a little old-fashioned, but man, oh man, they get the job done.
See, and by me, there's this great shop, all pro, independent, and I'm lucky if I can get in there in a week because they are so good and so busy. They've got, I don't know, maybe 15 bays.
Yeah, wow, that's a big shop.
And they're all full. They do a great job. Now, for me, I might be able to sneak in a little under the wire, but
people.
But
you know a guy who knows a guy?
I know a guy who knows a guy. But I think that's indicative of kind of the trend that we've seen. And we've also seen, if you look at the overall growth in the industry, we experienced a pretty nice lift of, 8, 9, 10%. Now we're back to maybe a little more normal level of 3%. But the bays continue to be busy.
This relates a little bit to the 10-year outlook. 3 years ago, EVs were the talk of the industry, and it was going to be huge transformation, very quick.
Yes.
And I wonder what the reality of that is today in April of 2025 and what the future. It feels like the EV drumbeat is less loud today than it was a year ago or 2 years ago.
One of the things that the Outlook 2025 got right.
Yeah.
And it talked about EVs and what that prediction and trend was.
Yeah.
And it said it will be slow adoption.
Yeah.
And sure enough, that's happened. Even with the policies in place that were encouraging rebates and incentives for EVs and, the clean air push for the administration. And now with the current administration, we know their view on the level of investment, and even the decision about the Paris Climate Accord and
Sure.
and things. From a supplier standpoint, even OEMs, there's a lot of sunk capital that has gone into EV
Big.
uptake. And we know that the business model for EVs with the level of demand has not been sustainable for OEMs. So I think from our standpoint, we had always said we're no longer racing toward EVs. We're racing toward coexisting between hybrids and internal combustion engines and EVs. And I think that's the big shift going forward.
And this is something we've been saying. We did our first big EV landmark study in 2017, 18. Yep. And we said at that time listen, the big message was there's not as much to fear. And you do talk about it. It's really changed the last year or two. And part of it is that it's become apparent that even on electrified vehicles, there's a lot for us to repair. There's actually more problems, according to J.D. Power's data, Consumer Reports data on the EVs than there are in some of the other vehicles. Not always leading to a parts repair, but more problems. So, reports of our demise are greatly exaggerated. The other thing is what Bill was describing, that this is not that lightning strike where everything turns the next day. This is a long transition. And that is really attractive for the aftermarket because you're talking about greater complexity. Complex new technologies, the aftermarket does great about repairing those. Complexity of the vehicle part, complexity of the SKUs, that's our sweet spot.
Right.
So we think this long, complex evolution that we're going to see, that sounds like potential golden age for the aftermarket of dealing with this complexity. That's what we do. That's what we've done for decades.
And even on a pessimistic view, if you were to take one, the aftermarket's a solid foundation.
Right.
All the pillars, the foundational pillars for the aftermarket remain solid. So it might not be as good as we had put in our business plan, but still a very solid outlook for the future, in our opinion.
So guys, you've been on this podcast before, at least once or twice. We do something called the lightning round. We're going to ask you.
The question. I hate the lightning round.
It's tough.
Do you hate it?
Oh,
Good,
I hate it.
perfect.
Do I need one of these pieces of paper to write down?
So, who wants to go first?
I'll go first.
Okay.
Last time it was morning person or night person. Up or cake or pie.
A little more complicated this time.
Uh-oh.
What's a book or resource, Bill, that has had a major impact on your professional growth over the years? You could have been something you read or looked at 20 years ago or something you looked at yesterday.
Yep. So Stephen Covey's 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. Yes. Seek first to understand before being understood and begin with the end in mind. Those are 2 foundational pillars that I embody daily.
In that upper right-hand square of urgent and important, right?
You had to bring that up.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Paul, you're up.
Okay.
Provide some tips on how you have a balanced work and personal life.
I'll take that for you.
Okay.
He doesn't have one.
I don't have
one. If you
one.
did, what would it look like?
What would it look like? I definitely don't. I work way too much. I think the only suggestion I can give on that one is work in an industry you love. I mean, I do work 7 days a week, but I love this industry. This is my passion. This is what drives me. And frankly, when I'm not working, my wife says, "Oh, you're reading about those cars again, aren't you?" And I am. So I think the one suggestion is to be in an industry you love. And we do have a lot of new people coming into our industry. You will find you love this industry, even if you don't care about cars. The people in this industry, what we do of bringing mobility and freedom to Americans throughout this life cycle, all economic groups, it's something to be passionate about. So you will find a way to love this industry.
You need to work more.
Well, that's perfect. So Bill, it's back to you. A favorite hobby. We talked about one right before we started this podcast related to music, but is that your favorite hobby? Or you've got a lot of hobbies, as I recall.
I've got a few. I don't know that I have a favorite, but in full disclosure, I do play a few instruments, so I love that. Our family, our two daughters and my wife all play kind of in a chamber ensemble. They won't let me play in their band. They don't like my music.
You're the manager?
Yeah, I'm their agent. But I think a lot of the audience knows a little bit about my background in relationship and motorsports and things.
Yeah.
So my dad was a NASCAR official from 1948 until 1977. Grew up going to races since I was 4. And full disclosure, I still to this day moonlight at a small half-mile NASCAR track on Friday nights as chief starter. And the season begins in 2 weeks. So every Friday night, you might find me there.
All right, Paul, back to you.
Okay.
Do you like the weather to be too hot or do you like it too cold?
Oh, I like it just right, so that's terrible.
Do you just like it just right? But you got to choose.
I
There's
gotta
only 2
choose?
options there.
I'll take some sun. Some sun. We're always optimistic in the aftermarket.
Bill, last question for you and then one more for Paul. Favorite museum anywhere in the world?
I want to play a game where I guess what Bill's going to answer. It's
There are several, but I would probably say it's going to be a toss-up between the Henry Ford Museum or the Honda Museum at the Twin Ring Motegi Racecourse in Japan, owned by Honda. Has all their Formula One engines, the first F1 car, all the Honda championship motorcycles. A pretty impressive place. And of course, I'm kind of impartial to the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, Hall of Fame Museum right at the center of the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. And I have to put a plug in because I do sit on the board for the Automotive Hall of Fame, and it has hard to call it a museum because it's a living celebration of those that have impacted our industry. But those 4 or 5 would be my number 1 pick.
So
right.
more or less a year ago, plus or minus, we were at the Henry Ford Museum for the Vision Conference.
That's right.
Even for this evening's event, right?
Impressive place.
exactly. And the Hall of Fame is right next door, so you can
Right.
do 2 in 1.
All right, last question. It goes to you, Paul. You're batting
Okay.
cleanup here. First car, and how old were you? It was your own car that you bought or owned, not
That I
like a
bought and
family
owned.
hand-me-down. And
yeah.
how old were you?
Well, no, I'd been saving up for a car since I was 8. So the car I got was an old mid-70s BMW with a couple of holes in some parts.
BMW, what, like a 320?
It was actually a
something?
5 Series. It was cheaper. I
Oh.
couldn't afford it. The 3s, and that would have been 2002s of that era. They were too expensive.
okay.
So it was a 5 Series that I loved. Didn't always run all that great. It had some electrical problems, so it liked to kind of stop. I was living in the countryside then, but it wasn't necessarily bad if I was out on a date and it just
Right.
the car just died on the side of the road. But
Ran out of gas.
yeah, but that was not the first car I tried to buy. First one was a 65 Mustang. We had a good family friend. He was an aerospace engineer. He's actually the first guy to break Mach 2.
My
He
God.
had kept this car. His wife had stopped driving in 1966. He kept it in perfect shape, and he agreed to sell it to me when I was 14, and my mom would not let me buy it because she was afraid my brother would go out and wreck it. So that was my first car that I wanted, but she wouldn't let me buy it, and I had the money.
So one of the questions we always ask when we're in a group like this is, so if you could have any car in the world, current or ever built, what would it be?
Probably, what was the quintessential year of the Jag convertible? Was it like the 63, the quintessential James Bond Jag convertible? Was it 62 or 3 or 4?
And
What
it
was
needed
it?
a lot of maintenance, so that was perfect for our conversation today. That was an aftermarket created
That was
automobile.
perfect for the after. What was the quintessential year of that?
It probably
So
was 60.
E-Type?
Yeah.
Yeah, the E-Type long hood Jag.
Yeah.
That probably was, early 60s. I couldn't pinpoint a year,
Yeah.
but I think you're right.
Beautiful car.
Guys, great to have you on AMN Drive Time, sponsored by our great friends at Eischen.
All right.
Thank you, Billy.
Always a pleasure.